Hello everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. So the lesson that we'll be focusing on today is a lesson of the early believers. And our focus phrase or memory verse is Acts 2:44, which is all who believed were together and had all things in common. Now before we get started, I actually have a question for you. So my question that I want you to try to answer is, what is church? When I think of church, I actually tend to think of a building, right? I think of a building typically where people meet on Sundays to discuss their religion and kind of work on their relationship with God. So that's what I think of a church is. But I want you to take a moment, truly pause the video, kind of figure out what your answer is, and then I'm going to talk to you about what the early believers believed. And then I'm going to see if your answer changes at the end. Maybe it'll change my answer, too. Who really knows? Okay. Wow, let's just jump right in then. Okay, so the people that we are focusing on today are the early believers. And the early believers, as you can probably tell from the name, are those who kind of first really believed in the stories or the teachings of Jesus Christ. And they had like three things that were really, really important to them. Number one was they thought it was important to share Jesus' love through his teachings. It was really important to them that they not just keep their religion to themselves, but they shared it with all those around them. Number two, it was really important to them to pray for those who needed it. So they didn't like to pray just for themselves, just because. They liked to pray for others. They would pray for their sick neighbors. They prayed for those who had worries. They liked to pray for people that might need a little bit extra help. And the other thing that was really important to them, the third thing, was important for them that they share their worldly belongings. There wasn't just mine and yours. If you wanted to truly follow the teachings, it was important that you shared those things with your community. So it wasn't just my home that I kept all to myself. It was important that you shared your home with others, or that if you wanted to make a meal, you would share your meal, or if you didn't have a meal to share, it was important that you shared your time with others. So those three things were pretty important to our early believers, and they thought that if you were going to have a religion, that you follow those things. They thought that was really important to them. The other thing that is pretty interesting about the early believers is that they did not think that church was a building. I mean, back then, a long time ago, they didn't have big churches like we do now. They didn't have a big sanctuary or a white building with a steeple and a bell or a stained glass window. So what they would do is that they would hold church kind of wherever they wanted to gather. So it could be in somebody's kitchen or another person's living room, or even held outside. So they thought that church wasn't a place, but in fact was the people. That people made up the church. And so that meant that church could be wherever there were people, so too could be church. And the thing that they also thought was important was that really the sense of togetherness, that they were a community. So that if you wanted to be part of the community, it was important that you take part in it, that you didn't just keep to your lonesome, that you shared your time and you shared your resources, and that you really were together with everyone. And that by being together and sharing all of your kind of your worldly possessions and learning about the teachings of Jesus, that meant that you had things in common, and that you were truly never actually were alone. Because if you believed, then you were connected through God to all of these other people who also believed, which I think is kind of a good feeling to have. Because I know right now, I don't know about you, but I really miss coming into church on Sundays. I've been coming here since I was 16, and I'm turning 26 in just a few weeks. So that's 10 years that I've been coming every single Sunday to church. And so for a while there, I was kind of really sad that I wasn't able to come into the physical building. But if I followed kind of the beliefs of the early believers, that I'm connected not through a shared space, but through our beliefs, and that means that even though I'm not physically able to go to church, I'm still there because I'm still practicing and following along the sermons. That's why I kind of think that they had the right idea, and that if you believed, you were together. So that was our memory verse and kind of our story of the early believers. I know it wasn't actually a story today, it was more of a discussion. But now I'm going to ask you that question again. Do you still believe that a church is a building, or do you kind of believe as our early believers did, that church is in fact the people? I don't know about you, but my answer has changed for sure. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, there are some other things I kind of want to discuss. So we have our talking point papers, and I know it talks about family trees and kind of a shared spot. So I was wondering if we could actually do something a little bit bigger. So I kind of dropped the ball earlier this month, but I was hoping that I could kind of revitalize this idea that Miss Julie had. And she had an idea that we could send out and connect all of the family members of our colonial church with some snail mail. So I'll be emailing you a little bit more information about possibly kind of getting together and connecting all of our family together, our colonial church family members together, so that way that we can realize and really focus on Acts 2:44, which is that even though we are all apart, all those who believe are together and have things in common. So feel free to talk over all those talking points. If you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email at Colonial, at our Colonial email, which is camille.breckenridge@colonialucc.org. And if you have any questions or concerns, or you want to just share what your church looks like this Sunday, feel free to take a picture, send it to me, and we'll kind of share it on the Colonial page so we can all see what everybody's churches looks like this Sunday, okay? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining me in my church today. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday, okay? Bye-bye. Have a nice day.